All right, we are recording.
Okay, cool. The crypt pad is loading right now, so it takes a little while. Yeah, I mean, basically, I got a bunch of things that were kind of on the outstanding agenda finally to go through last week. So the visualizer project started today. The final security audit that will produce a report it starts tomorrow. And yeah, I've run through a bunch of candidates to try to onboard more people. It's pretty slow going to have to look at every person's GitHub and dig into it. But I think it's a better screening strategy than just talking to people. So yeah, that's my report.
All right, thanks, Mike. Next up, Adine.
Yeah, so I merged the fetch spec, which just gets stuff based on a path, is useful for making pub/sub persistent. Also some Libp2p discovery things, 2 PRs, one for backoff and caching, and one for basically discovery and content routing are the same thing. We have an interface implementation that takes one and turns it into the other. We now have an implementation that goes the other way too. Next, I'm probably just gonna take all of that and use it in the pub/sub discovery PR. Yeah.
Just going to interrupt to say I am back via the magic of cell phones. So yeah, but let's continue on those updates. Thank you, Adine.
Cool. Next up is me. Yeah, so we updated JS multi-adder to use P2P by default. So that will get rolled out over the next month or so as we update the dependency. But that is marked as a breaking change, so it should slowly work its way out. And then working a lot on the async await refactor for Libp2p. I'm going to focus more on that this week. With that, we're doing a couple internal updates to Libp2p core as well. Like we're also adding a upgrader that we're going to pass to the transport, similar to how Go Libp2p is passed an upgrader for the connection. And so far, just locally working on the refactor that's cleaned up a lot of that logic for JS. So I think that should be friendlier to the users downstream. And this week, I'm just going to work on getting a few of the blocking modules finished up and released so we can move forward there.
Awesome.
For me.
All right. Up next is me. Yeah, the big shift I've been making is just generally towards working on getting message orientation started. So that's going to start with a proposal document. I've got like the first draft of that. I'll circulate that today. And the hope this week is generally to take that and flesh it out. And it's like the one deliverable I really want by the end of the week is to have like the first action item, the first step towards realizing this finalized so that I can actually start plugging away at that. Alongside that, I've been just kind of investigating security options for the message-oriented transports. The ones I'm looking at are DTLS and noise primarily. I had a chance to dig into DTLS and see how it could potentially play or interplay with something like this. The results are like kind of promising and kind of frustrating, so there'll be more on that later. And yeah, a lot of code review from a really wonderful new contributor on the DHT. And up next, yeah, I just want to kind of get that survey and proposal finalized, get that first step going, do a little more code review. I've got some stuff in flight for you, Dean, and ever more DHT contributions to review. And that is me. Up next, I have you, Sal.
Yeah, so I I think last call I was talking a big game about how I was going to dig into the CAD spec. It didn't happen so much. I did some more reading, but I didn't make any progress there. Instead, I made some edits to the noise spec, did a few interviews, and did a few README edits, and also dug into Gossip Sub, which I learned new things by rereading the spec. I hadn't read it for a while, and I really want to understand it so that we can, in a few weeks, we're going to be contracting out to build like a Gossip Sub explainer, like that really kind of goes in detail about how it works. And so I want to be able to support that. And then my next thing that I would really like to focus on, parking CAD for another couple of weeks, is multi-select 2, and try to firm that up and really get something that we can, something actionable. So that unless somebody really wants to point me at something else, I feel like that would be a good thing to sink into for the next week or two, and hopefully we could get a working draft up in a couple, within that time range. And then I've also noticed that I like pulling a README off the stack every day or so, and just getting some edits in place, because it's a nice momentum builder. So I'm going to try and keep that up.
That's great. I think that's an amazing habit. Also, I would love to pick your brain a little bit about noise.
Yeah, definitely.
And so maybe we could set up a call for tomorrow or something. I'll hit you up out of band. But that sounds great. Up next we have Raul.
Yeah, incidentally about noise, I just added a note on your update, because it definitely, using inline keys with the noise cycle handshake could really go a long way, and possibly even remove the need for DTLS at all. So that's
awesome.
Definitely something that you and Yusuf could talk about, because Yusuf is our in-house expert now on noise. So so my update here is that I've been pretty heads down on the IPFS Libp2p test ground. I got a test running with 100 DHT nodes running locally and synchronizing via a Redis instance. So this is going to be pretty. So this is kind of like the first implementation of the sync service, which is pretty instrumental to the test ground itself. Pretty happy about that, and I'm going to be working on automating the Docker pipeline and the shipping of the test jobs to a Nomad cluster next. Been working with the Libp2p guys. They are this week in Canada, around 70 of them. They are locked up in a cabin running interop tests against, between different clients. So we already got pretty good feedback and positive signs emerging from that last weekend, where 2 or 3, I think we're now up to 4 clients are successfully interoperating via Libp2p. So this is awesome. I definitely expected a few more, warts in the interoperability story there, but apparently it's been more or less seamless. They did have a glitch and an issue with the way that with multi-select too, with multi-stream, where basically some implementations were expecting the multi-stream preamble plus the actual protocol selection, and this is actually Rust only, and they weren't ACKing multi-stream itself, whereas the other implementations were waiting for the ACK before sending the actual protocol selection. So I mean, just really minor stuff, quite frankly. ETH Berlin, we had pretty amazing successes there. If you were in the all hands call a few days ago, you probably heard about that. We've got Wireshark dissectors. The contributor that built those continues contributing, so this is awesome. He is continuing to evolve the Wireshark dissectors themselves. He created a fork of sec.io that has a key logging feature, so it dumps the keys, the symmetric keys, to a file, which then the dissector hooks up to, and that way, basically, it manages to dissect traffic. We are now turning that into a layered pipeline, so that whatever sec.io dissects, then it sends it downstream to other dissectors, such that they can continue unpacking that payload iteratively. So then there is MPLEX, and there's going to be all kinds of application protocols. As well, he's refactoring that into a multi-stream thing, such that the multi-stream Wireshark dissector would be an entity of itself, such that other applications can then latch onto it and say, hey, sorry, other dissectors can latch onto it and say, hey, I'm able to handle this particular protocol. So the heuristics of selecting dissectors will become a lot more efficient. But yeah, that's, hit me up if you're interested in that story. Mesim, Gossip Sub, Noise Handshake, Gossip Sub profiling, and MDNS. These are things that we got out of ETH Berlin. Also worked with Mike on kicking off the Phantom Drift data first iteration, which is awesome. Did some interviews. And this week I'm going to continue focusing heads down on the test ground. And Mike and I are probably going to start the PM refactor this week or the next week. So yeah, I'm going to be working with him on that. And just want to give a heads up. Next week I'm going to be on holiday, so I'm really looking forward to at least 1 week break before I start prepping for DEF CON, which is going to be another stressful, crazy event. So yeah, that's all from me.
Awesome. That's amazing. With the DHT testing, I'd love to take a look at that. And I'll just get in touch out of band. I think last up we have Steven. Are you on this call? I can't tell from this phone land. Cool.
I added a bunch of asks. I would really love reviews on the CID RFC. I don't think this is all that controversial, but yeah, basically, if you aren't aware, the idea is to encode PRIDs as CIDs in text. This makes it easy to tell if something is actually a PRID and not just some other random multi-hash. It also gives us multi-base encoding for free, and it doesn't change anything about Y formats. It's all just in text. The second one is an odd timeout I'm seeing in GoIPFS, or some of our users are seeing in GoIPFS, where like we establish a connection and then we time out negotiating the multi-stream, or sorry, the stream multiplexer. This is after doing the security handshake. The thing is, the server isn't overloaded. So like if the server were overloaded, I'd say, well, like maybe it's just taking a really, really long time to negotiate or like to do the security handshake, and then it's timing up by the time it gets the final handshake. But yeah, this just feels kind of weird. So if someone could just, if they have time, quickly look into why this might be happening, that would be awesome. Yeah. Finally, there is a test failure on the stabilized branch in GoIPFS. So something is wrong on the stabilized branch that doesn't appear, actually, no, I take that back. I think this is also going wrong on the master branch as well. But this wasn't happening before I updated Libp2p. So yeah, this may be related to DHT changes. I'm not entirely sure. This actually, I take this back. I'll move this one for now because this could be a bit of an issue. I have to do more testing there.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And I think the last thing, I don't know, Mike, I just left a spot on the agenda if you wanted to talk about the retrospective.
Yes, okay, sorry. It took a little time to find the window. Basically I put up a Q3 retro doc. I know Q3 is not over yet. It's still like a month away, but I thought there was a desire or something from LabOS to basically do the retro like before the OKRs, and the first draft of the OKRs is due on Friday or something. So I don't know. I think just retro on what's happened so far this quarter or in recent memory. I think the timing is less important than the content, but I hope everyone will take some time to put their thoughts in there. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody else have any agenda points they want to add? All right, going once, going twice. And I think that is it for today. Yeah, thanks everybody. and I guess I'll be reaching out to.
One thing. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One thing
Go
that I
ahead.
wanted to talk about is the huge mess that we have with Go and Go 1.13 and the proxies and all that shit. Sorry for using profanity, but I'm sick of this particular issue. The tweet that I put out received a lot of attention, and I think this is going to turn into a real issue for the Go community in general. Martin did a great job at summarizing, how fragile the whole tagging of releases and the low barrier to actually make a release just by creating a tag and pushing it creates like a huge surface for accidents, which might not be so important if you're just pushing a minor or a patch release. But if for whatever reason you push a major release, then that is going to alter, like it's going to make all your downstreams alter their import paths, and that is super messy. So I don't really know like how to proceed with this. Quite frankly, we do have an immediate problem, and I came across this as soon as I upgraded my Go installation, and I created a brand new project and I imported Go Libp2p. It imported 6.0.23 incompatible, because that is what the proxy is storing, like the centralized proxy is storing. So
yeah, I think these are
pretty bad. Yeah.
I'd like to take this point to remind everyone: please delete those tags if you have them locally. There are scripts that I've published many times to do this. Please just do it. But okay, let's move on now.
Yeah.
This was a real disaster. We should advise our users to turn off the Go proxy.
Yeah. So
it's good for their privacy too.
Exactly, it's good for their privacy. I mean, this is such a stupid move.
To argue it from their side, like we've had a lot of problems where people will change their tags on us, and we don't want that. So like the idea behind this is like, if a user deletes a tag or changes something or does something, or sorry, a package maintainer does something stupid like that, the code should still be available. That's why they did this, and that makes sense because like Go IPFS didn't, or like 0420 doesn't build. Sorry, 0421 doesn't build right now because of a change in Badger. Like you can't rebuild it. Unfortunately, of course, 0422 won't build either because Go released a change that's really, really anal about version numbers and about like timestamps and version numbers, but that's a different issue.
Yeah. So it's great that every time you build something, it reports to Google servers, though.
Yeah, but like this is no different than like NPM or Rust or any other programming language. Their system at least lets you choose a different cache or no cache.
Yeah, except that NPM is like a different story because it started being centralized and it is the package manager, and it is in theory a different tool that then got absorbed into the Node ecosystem. Whereas Go, they're actually bundling it. Like this is the only way to build Go. This is the only way to manage.
But I don't think there was a good alternative solution. I just don't think they had one. And like all the metadata they get is like, I am pulling these packages. They don't learn about your private packages. They just learn about public packages you fetch through their system. So they do get extra stats, but it's not.
By default, they do actually get like I think your Go build will, or the Go toolchain will actually try to fetch even private packages from them, and it will just fail because they don't have them.
Yes. Yeah, it'll try to fetch the private packages, but yeah, they have no way of knowing that. I guess, yeah, fine. What they could do is like, you could learn this separately somehow. Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly concerned with what should be our ongoing, like what should be our next steps here to solve this issue for our users. Things that occurred to me is like basically recommend to disable this flag, to disable proxy usage, or to add the Go Libp2p organization to the private repos such that, or like to make it go to direct. I think there's a way that you can configure that to like only selectively avoid the proxy usage for certain repos. I'm just not comfortable at all with that, because like it means that Go Libp2p is broken forever in their proxy, and that makes me very sad.
No, so like they're going to add some way to like block out versions, and we can do that. We can just like go through all these bad tags and like knock them out. Unfortunately, it probably won't happen for a while. I mean, this doesn't require shipping a new Go release; it just requires changing the proxy, so they could ship it immediately. But yeah.
Yeah. Another possibility is to basically change our import paths forever and move to something like go.libp2p.io slash, that
Yeah,
way.
well, I think we probably want to do this eventually anyways.
So that would create an entirely different namespace for us where we could start afresh. However, if somebody still has the bad tags, they might nuke that namespace again. So I don't really unless we move to like a custom Git or GitHub gets back together and adds protected tags or something like that, we won't be able to reject those tags on.
Well, I have no faith in GitHub getting their shit together and stuff like this. It's getting better, but this has been something that's been necessary for years, and they haven't. So one thing we can do, like if we move to GitLab, which I think if we change URLs, we could probably just do that and just mirror it in GitHub. Then we get protected tags, so you can it's not, unfortunately, I can't say like if this tag exists, allow this tag. That's ideally what we'd have. But we can't just say no, basically no one can create version tags. And then we have a bot that enforces this. But if you want to release a new version, you create an issue for the version, you assign it to the bot creates the version.
Yeah, that sounds pretty compelling.
It's just a lot of work.
Another thing, I don't know when the proxy actually starts caching a particular module. I guess on the first fetch for that module. Yes. But if we have a GitHub action that reactively removes tags, if it does that very fast, I mean, there's going to be a timing condition, of course, involved. And there might be just the one bad case where, the hook is slow, whatever, and somebody tries to fetch that module before the hook actually removes that tag is going to bork the namespace again. So it's definitely not a good solution, but I wanted to put it out there.
I feel obligated to point out the stupidest possible solution. Libp2p version 7. We're releasing it tomorrow. Damn. Anyway.
The problem with that is that then we'd have to upgrade all the import paths anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I think there are probably other reasons not to do that. But.
I'd say we just fork the project every time we need to cut a major release.
Another possibility here is, and this probably it's just for consideration in the sense that let's talk about all the possibilities. Probably not the best one, but for completeness sake, we could operate our own GitHub and have GitHub be the mirror of our GitHub. This is what many organizations do, and I see David is laughing for some reason.
Well, no, that was my recommendation for GitLab. If we use GitLab, we would get our own custom subdomain there. We would probably also use pretty import paths, so it would be go.libp2p.io/something another for each package. Yeah, that would the problem is that's a lot of work to do that migration. I think we should do it eventually, anyways, just because it extracts us from GitHub's hold, and GitHub has unfortunately not really delivered in terms of what users need.
I have a couple other points. One related to this, the other one not related. The one related to this is a fun point. I'll just say that this is all I totally feel your pain, because in the NPM world, the problems are exactly the same. But this is karma, because we talked about the versions 2 years ago, and supposedly versions in Go didn't matter, and now that they matter, we are all paying the cost. So I don't know, it's ironic. The other point is I just wanted to kind of like catch up with everyone and kind of like broadcast like what the heck am I going to be doing now, or at least like focusing on now. And essentially, I don't think like it's widely known in the organization. It's something I also discovered only in July. But there was an intent or a desire back in June to create like the same way that Filecoin has a research group, right, a research lab within the Filecoin project. There was a proposal within the research team to create like something that can focus on networks research. So think about problems like DHT scalability, privacy preserving networks, new crypto channels, and so on. And so just to give you like a little bit of like context from the last months is like in June was this conversation, this research PM summit. I was actually not there. And then the ball kept moving forward. And so in July, post IPFS, or still in June in IPFS Team Week and IPFS Camp, me and Yanis were at these events, and Juan shared a presentation about how to structure IPFS and peer-to-peer research. And then the ball continued rolling into what is now known as either the Network Lab or the Resilient Networks Lab. And so I had the chance also to chat with the research team, and they are like structuring what is like these research groups. So instead of like creating independent teams such as like Filecoin Research that is an independent team for their own reasons, what Protocol Labs Research is like to have almost like multiple departments as you get in a university. And so kind of like a first instance of that is this networks lab. And so I spent today a bunch of time just like articulating, like grabbing from all the conversations back in July and all the notes written and all the discussions, just like what networks lab is and what it is going to focus and what it is not going to focus, and how it is going to support the project teams, namely, especially, of course, with peer-to-peer and IPFS. You might have talked with Yanis in the last few weeks. Yanis has been doing an amazing work collecting all the topics, like all the open problems and all of the topics for protocol design. There is this intent to organize a research intensive event. Still on the works. I will actually have to catch up with Yanis still this week. And like, it's the first time I'm seeing his face. But yeah, and so there is this networks research group that is forming, and the intent right now is to have a team that eventually in the future has the capability, the resources to pick up on any open research problem and go from like finding collaborations, putting out research grants, finding the problem, doing the first like work of like surveying the state of the art, testing what is out there, and so on. And so kind of like helping both IPFS and with peer-to-peer and like take some of that work from your guys' plate. Of course, the team is pretty much just me and Yanis right now, like doing that. So like it's not just by having a team that like the problems get solved. So this will have to be a gradually like a thing that gets built. But also it is something that is kind of new. We are still crystallizing. So I sent you an email, Raul, just like to catch up and like see how things are on the peer-to-peer side. Just get the breakdown. I think like one thing that is essential for having a solid research platform for networks is to have exactly the work that the peer-to-peer team is doing, which is a test lab infrastructure, telemetry, and so on. And so my intuition is that we actually should just like be investing our energy and time to make that work, and then focus then on like articulating on all the open problems and reaching out to the research labs and start creating the collaboration that will be needed to solve future problems. But first, like just augment the team, perhaps with a more like research angle perspective, like how can we make this platform a great platform for researchers as well, but like support and augment. So this is where I'm at. This is the information I know. There is this repo, I can send it to you, and like you can just read the pull request I made today, so that you have access to all the description and goals and mission and so on. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, things you want to share, things that you have the chance to discuss in the last few months.
Well, this is. I just want to give you positive feedback on what you're doing here. I think we definitely need to be a lot more theory first with many of the changes that we decide to make. Especially because we are many times playing it by the year, which is great because it's like there's a hacker energy that we want to we want to play with and so on. But at the end of the day, it is true that the size of the network and the amount of projects that are depending on the work that IPFS is doing, Libp2p is doing, especially Libp2p now that has become this top level project that is being adopted by large platforms and networks out there. We definitely need to get a lot more research first with many of the systems and subsystems that we develop. So this is a great initiative. In terms of testing, I'm going to send you the engineering document here that summarizes the design. I don't know if you have it, but basically it's the design that we're implementing here. I think that would be useful. On the other hand, the telemetry, I think it's gonna be super important as well. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago about how they make changes in Facebook and how they roll out changes and how they decide to go, because Facebook doesn't test their changes at scale in general. They don't test the changes before they release them. They have a very controlled release process and telemetry and understanding how this change is actually rolling out, how systems are being affected by them, and how the change is being received by the users as well, to decide whether to continue rolling it out or to continue expanding the sample or not. So I mean, that is potentially another avenue for us to explore, rolling out changes that we're making, besides attempting to simulate, doing huge scale simulation of chain sets. We can also do canary deployments in a very controlled fashion, or there's a lot of things that we can explore, but all of that predicates on having a telemetry protocol such that we can actually sense, and understand and gather intelligence about what's going on in the network. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is that there is all of these also research in some sense around engineering best practices, deploying large systems, and even taking the example of peer-to-peer network, peer-to-peer test labs from the past, like Planet Lab, Community Lab, and so on. All of those projects have multiple contributors over multiple decades, and they also learn a ton of things through that process. This is something that, for example, this Networks Lab could go in advance and kind of just gather all of the learnings, and also be a team that can the way that Yanis did back in July, basically brought all of these experience and knowledge and compiled a workshop that then can be delivered to the team and offer the best training as source for inspiration. Chloe, I think your phone in your pocket. And I cannot do. So, but yeah, this is something we can do as well. If there is a new avenue or a potential avenue that hasn't been explored because of time, engineers have to hack and deploy, right? This is something that this team can actually tackle. And yeah, if you see the pull request I shared here, sorry, I forgot to add the Labbers team, but now you should have access. It's just the research pipeline image with 2 squares, and the left square, it's where this lab should focus on research, serving, and even implementing some of the code. And then there should be a transition, a support for the engineering team to then deploy and so on. And I think long term, this makes a little bit more sane approach between product-oriented teams, deployment teams, versus teams that just need to have these longer, longer schedules to explore this research and establish all these collaborations. But then again, I expect also a lot of overlap between some people that will be across both sides of the equation. It's just more of a process of formalization and allocating proper resources to all the points in the spectrum.
Two quick points. Thanks for the summary, David. Yeah, we should progress on that. Just a quick thing that we had in Berlin. We had a meeting between a few of us. Raul was there, Mike was there, George, Juan, and we kind of tried to structure and become a team in an efficient way. And we were discussing with Raul, for example, the fact that depending on what is the problem at hand, you know, it might take me a day to do something that someone else could take 2 hours, and the other way around. So for each one of those problems, depending on the experience, we should be flexible to assign the issue, at least as a first step, to someone who has got prior experience and who is bringing background, and then pass the ball to others. So this could be both from the research team to the engineering team and the other way around, and feed both ways so that, you know, until the issue gets further. So this is going to be, I think, it's also in the document that I listed all the open problems. The thinking behind was kind of like that, and it will have to be done together. Yeah. And another side comment, I've heard, it's not only Facebook, I've heard many actually other companies that say when they push something into production, in order to save cost and time, they just don't do any testing. And the argument from an engineer, a friend of mine, said, you know, we've got this, you know, user base of hundreds of thousands of people to test it for us. Why should we do it? You know, we just get, but these, you know, we get the measurements and we see what needs to be fixed, and we fix it a day later instead of spending our own day or our own week to test and fix before. But this is, you need to have the telemetry protocol there. Not only that, it should be not